welcome to my podcast. My name is Megan, as I've said. The title of this podcast is Existentially Blonde. I came up with that name because for me, it's kind of a paradox, and I really like contradictions and things that seem like they should be kind of opposing in some way. I think that, and I'll get more into that, but existentially blonde. So the existential part just has to do with my personality a lot, and the very intellectual part of it. I love to read. I'm a voracious reader. I consume books like they're about to go extinct, and I've always been that way. I remember in school getting into trouble all the time for reading while I was supposed to be doing something else. And so I love learning new things. It doesn't even matter the topic. I can find anything interesting. So I'm a really deep person as well. I want to understand as much as I can about myself and people and life and why we're here, what it's like to be a person, because no one chose to be here. It's very strange, and then you die in the end. I really gravitated toward existential psychology. That's, an example of a topic that I really enjoy reading about. The existentially, that word is kind of an ode to a subject that I'm going to hit on a lot, and also just kind of who I am as a person and where my interests are. And then the blonde part is the paradox. I've had feedback a lot throughout my life. When people first meet me, they form impressions, as we all do. And I've been told many times by people who have taken the opportunity to get to know me that they're very surprised because they assumed I was dumb, boring, snobby, basic, kind of like a goody two-shoe or something. It's interesting. I used to feel like I really had to prove myself. I would be really self-conscious that people I first encountered would form these impressions of me. But I kind of think it's funny. Again, there's just so much that we don't understand unless we take the time to try to, including people. So yeah, that's the name of my podcast. It's also going to be me exploring different topics, different facets of our culture and modern society in 2025, exploring things that are just kind of day-to-day minutia or, trivialities, looking into the deeper part of those things. So, why we get so upset waiting in line is an example. It sounds really trivial, but there's always a deeper underlying connection with that intense emotion, if that makes sense. I also am going to have episodes where I talk about things that I think will be helpful for people, how to consume information. It's really important, especially in this day and age where there is just access to infinite information, and it can be really easy to get caught up in these sensational stories and posts, and you see that a lot. And I am very much a nuanced person. I take a lot of pride in my ability to sit down with something and really critically think and ask questions, but I think it's super important to try to look at as many perspectives in any given situation and really understand what what's going on. What are the facts? How do we acquire those facts? How do we know? What sources should we trust? Who's credible? I pride myself in investigating and researching and doing a really thorough job before I develop any opinion about something. I can see many sides, and so I think I'm pretty malleable to changing my opinion on things, not in a bad way, not to please anyone or to have everybody like me. It's just that I genuinely can hear multiple very intelligent, very credible individuals discuss a topic and express very differing opinions. When you look at things like that, it's really easy to be like, well, all these people have really good points. It's always good to go further into different perspectives that you learn about, to gather some information, look into research, and then that can maybe help narrow down or solidify a stronger opinion, I suppose. For me, I think it is a strength. It allows me to listen to people that I may not agree with on pretty fundamental things, or things that aren't part of my identity, such as religion. But I have always forced myself to go into situations such as different work environments with groups that I know nothing about and don't really feel so comfortable with. So for instance, working in nursing homes, working with older adults in that context, it's very hard. And it was something that I've always feared, because you are face to face with end of life stuff, with death. People were dying all the time. It became very strange to see how desensitized people were to it. But I developed such close relationships with these individuals, could really empathize with their experience, put myself in that position. You don't have your life ahead of you when you're at the end. So you have to become very present, and you have to also be able to reconcile any sort of regret or just unfinished business that you have from your life. And that is a very, very hard thing to do. And on top of that, managing the stress of declining health, the discomfort that comes with that, a lot of pain, cognitive impairment or cognitive changes that are happening, insurance, family, there's all sorts of things. And it not only allows you to see people who are older as just like everybody else, and you'll hear people often say they feel like they're the same person that they were at 25, 35. It's just physically they look different. And I've heard that so many times. And so when I look at older adults and I interact with them now, I see them completely different. I don't think that they're senile or fragile or cute. They're just people that have all the same human stuff as us, and I honestly think that they are amazing for getting that far in life, especially those who are still able to find joy after losing virtually everybody in their life and having to give up everything, all of their possessions, their home, in order to move into a facility, whether it's assisted living or long-term care. That is, to me, one of the most courageous things, and I really think that we don't give enough credit. Another setting, I've worked in different kind of religious settings, because I was like, I don't know much about any religion, so I worked in a Catholic outpatient facility. Part of my job was to help assess individuals to determine if they were fit to discern priesthood. So a lot of times they were young people. They'd applied to seminary. Many seminaries require now that candidates undergo a full psychological evaluation. So I was part of the intake and asking questions and getting to know people and forming impressions. And I will say that it was a wild experience and I loved it. And I had such an amazing mentor, supervisor who just helped me and inspired me so much. And, I went into it having negative biases and impressions about religion in general, but especially Catholicism. I always kind of looked at that one as just real intense and showy and kind of like too serious. But I met some of the most amazing people, priests, who just really blew my mind. And I could tell that they were touched by, let's say, just touched by God or whoever. Just it's such a genuine, earnest relationship with their God and such a strong sense of faith that it really opened my eyes to religion and the idea of faith and the differences between having a strong sense of faith and practicing a religion. So those are examples of that show that I definitely love getting to know different people of all walks of life. I want to better understand different groups people belong to, whether it's age groups. Everybody has a multitude of identities in addition to their unique personalities, right? And those can seemingly be infinite, but just in terms of demographic variables, people belong to so many different groups. Age, there's differences in cohorts, different age cohorts, religion, different ethnicities, race, abilities, disabilities, socioeconomic status. So I just think it's really good to spend time with people that are different from yourself. On top of that, to try to understand and get to know people that think differently than you. And why that might be, develop compassion for their viewpoints because they form somehow. There's always a justification, and I think that's really cool. And I also think that we as people are going to always be contradictory. I think it's really awesome and makes me happy because it shows that we're not perfect and we shouldn't be. And it's okay that you might feel some way about something that doesn't make sense given your job or what have you. For instance, in a Tom Robbins book, Fierce Infidels Home from Hot Climates, that the protagonist is just a walking paradox. And he, for instance, laments and criticizes the government to no end, yet he works for the CIA. So there's just a lot of examples of that, but there's such an earnest authenticity to his character, and I think the point is to be able to appreciate those contradictions rather than criticize them, because I don't think people are intentionally trying to be hypocritical, as we would often call them. It's just that, you can be in a situation and hold different views that don't make sense to the context. For instance, I worked in the Catholic setting and I was not religious at all and had criticized organized religion, yet here I was in this very religious setting. So it's good to be able to see those things in others and yourself. In this podcast, for the most part, I am going to talk about the human experience in general, what it means to be here, how to navigate existential issues such as death anxiety, freedom, meaninglessness, being able to find meaning and purpose in this existence where it can feel overwhelming to do so, and loneliness. How do we form relationships and develop relationships while also acknowledging that we all experience intense loneliness on a very deep level? What I mean is just kind of the sheer fact that we all came into this world alone and we all leave alone, and that's pretty terrifying. In Irvin Yalom's, one of his books, he's a famous psychiatrist / psychotherapist. His theory of existentialism is what I often refer to, but he's amazing. I think it was one of his patients who came up with this analogy, the idea of, we're all in our own little boats, like bopping around in the water alone, but if we look around, we see all the other boats around us with their lights on. Things like that I find very comforting. I will also be talking about a lot of historical and philosophical figures and events and comparing them to now and current issues. I can't wait to share all this. Hopefully you guys get something out of this podcast. I really just wanted to have a space where maybe you might feel less alone in some way, being able to hear somebody else talk about some pretty real scary things that just are innate to the human experience, stuff that we don't often talk about. And also, I hope that you guys can learn to appreciate different ways of thinking and seeing the world. I'm excited to get more into these topics. I do apologize if I've been rambling a lot. The following episodes are a lot more structured, so they're not going to feel like tangential at all. And I do a lot of in-depth research beforehand. A lot of the topics are areas that I know pretty well already, but I am someone that I feel like there's always more to learn. I'm really excited about getting into these episodes and sharing with you all. Hopefully you get something out of it. This is just the first episode, so also bear with me. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and until next time, I'm Megan, and this is Existentially Blonde. Have a great day. See you next time.